Hey guys, welcome back. I'm shamelessly stealing this video idea from Alice. She actually encouraged me to do so, so I'm doing this video with her blessing. If you don't know, Alice from Alice's Beauty Madness is one of my besties here on YouTube. She's actually someone I know and like to hang out with in real life, and I cannot wait for this stupid pandemic to be over so that we can get together more often, because every time we've been together it has felt like we did not have enough time to hang out. This is how much I love Alice. One of my most favorite videos that she does on her channel is those in retrospect type of videos where she reflects on hauls or past favorites, just products that she has bought and enjoyed in the past, and whether they have the same place in her heart and in her collection as they did before. And I can tell you from my own experience, this can be a very interesting reflection and a very interesting road to go down, because I've had the experience, especially recently with eyeshadow palettes, that eyeshadow formulas that I thought were absolutely killing it 3 years ago, I swatch them now and I think, oh gosh, this is so bland and it's so boring and doesn't have any dimension to it and it's not sparkly enough. Makeup formulas are being, you know, optimized, not with like little steps, but what feels like huge leaps, and stuff that was the shit a year ago is already dated. So I thought it might be really fun for me to take a trip down memory lane and share what I think about the products that were in my last year's least and most favorites. I did film this video, I think, for the first time last year. I don't know if I've filmed this type of video prior to that. So I'm just going to reflect on the products that I thought were my least and most favorite in 2019. So in my section of least favorite products, I had mentioned several products, and those were the Colourpop Good Sport palette, the McGrath Sublime Perfecting Setting Powder, so that's the loose powder, the McGrath liquid liner, the one that comes with a felt tip, as well as, I believe, the Hourglass Vanish Stick foundation. I can't believe I mentioned that one as a favorite, because I still don't like that foundation, spoiler. And also one of my Suqqu liquid blushes, which I actually don't even have anymore. So let's go back quickly into those. The Colourpop Good Sport palette. Still don't know what to do with it. I haven't used it since I talked about it. Maybe I've used it once this year. However, I am going to give her much more of a chance next year, because I'm planning on doing my version of Shop My Stash, and this is definitely one of the palettes that I'm going to focus on a lot, because in theory I really like this palette. It's just that for some reason, when it comes to taking it out of my makeup collection and playing with it, I never feel the urge to do so. The McGrath setting powder. I don't mind this powder, it's a good powder, it's just that I don't like loose setting powders, because they make a ridiculous mess. Now this powder and I are at a stage in our relationship where she doesn't make as much of a mess when I open the lid up, because I have used quite a bit of the product, so there is no like powder explosion every time I open it. So we have come to like a more peaceful time into our relationship. I appreciate this powder. I think it's a great blurring powder and I don't mind having it, but I can't wait to use it up so that I can just have pressed powders in my collection and like stop fucking around with loose powders, because they're just not for me. The McGrath liquid liner, I don't actually have, well, I do, I'm lying. I do still have the packaging of this, because I actually use it with my Inglot gel liner in order to like revive it with a bit of Duraline, and I use the felt tip as like an application brush tip. The Hourglass Vanish Stick foundation. I have tried to use this foundation a couple of times this year, but I just don't like the finish. It just looks, it sits on my skin, it doesn't really melt with my skin the way I like to. If I don't have any progress with it in the next couple of months though, I am going to pass it along to someone else, because I'm sure there are plenty of people in my life who have a similar skin tone to me and might enjoy this foundation a bit more than I do. I don't have the Suqqu liquid blush. I didn't have it even last year when I was talking about it in this video, because I passed it along to a friend. Nothing was wrong with the blush, it just was the wrong color for me. The color was Raspberry Red, which was a very cool toned, very purple magenta sort of blush, and it just looked like nothing flattering on my skin, so I passed it along to a friend. She's been enjoying it. So the rest of the products on this list are all favorites, and the question now is, have they remained favorites in 2020? Since we're talking about Suqqu, let me quickly mention that the liquid blush in 03, which is the color Hot Orange, still remains my favorite, or one of my favorite like cream to liquid blushes. I adore this blush, I adore the formula, the finish, everything about it. It's a shame that it doesn't come in more colors, because I would be deeply interested in purchasing those. On the topic of face products, last year I mentioned the Nabla Skin glazing powders. I still have 3 of those, the same 3 shades that I showed also in my last year favorites video. The shade Truth, which I use as a blush, and the shades Privilege and Ozone, which I use as highlighters. I don't know whether you guys can tell just from the fact how worn out the Nabla embossment on these products is, how much I have used them. Without a shadow of a doubt, the Nabla Skin glazing powders are still one of my absolute favorite products in my collection. I think Nabla is really onto something with this formula. These look absolutely beautiful on the skin. They look natural, they have a bit of a sheen to them. I cannot say enough good things about this formula. I actually think Nabla should have a much bigger range of products with this formula, because as far as I'm concerned, there aren't enough colors in this range. They did actually expand the range with 2 more blushes and a couple of bronzers this year. I don't have any of those, the only reason being that, at least online, the bronzer shades looked very bizarre and none of them looked like anything that I would enjoy. So next time I visit Alice, I'm actually going to swatch the shade Dune, because that's the shade she has and that would be the only one that would work also for my skin tone, just to see whether I like the undertone. But she was not a huge fan of the undertone, so I'm not sure I'm going to be. I see here 2 lipsticks that I've actually not used much this year. These are my 2 Suqqu lipsticks, the Moisture Rich lipstick and the Extra Glow, which are essentially the same color. They are both peachy nude colors, and the difference between them is that one has a little bit of sparkles to it, that's the Rich Moisture one, and the Extra Glow is just a little bit more of like a sheer lip balm formula. But as you can see, the colors are almost identical. Don't ask me why I have both of them. I probably assumed that they would be different enough from each other. I'm still a huge fan of the formula of these lipsticks. They're very comfortable, very nourishing, very moisturizing, a very classy formula to have on your lips. Then we've got a bunch of Pat McGrath lipsticks. The first one is the Luxetrance in She's Heaven, which remains one of my favorites. I have used this lipstick quite a lot this year. It is one of the most perfect nudes for me, and I especially love this lipstick paired with a bit of a lip gloss. It's just a very versatile lipstick and I still very much enjoy it. Next up is another lipstick from Pat that I still very much enjoy, and that is the shade Blood Rush, which is one of her Blittztrance lipsticks. It is a gorgeous, vibrant, fiery red with golden sparkle through it. One of my absolute favorite shades from Pat McGrath. It's a beautiful color, gorgeous formula. Happy to say I have not changed my mind about Blood Rush, and I also have not changed my mind about the next Pat McGrath lip product, and that is my lip gloss in the shade Flash 6. There is just something very special about all the lip products in her like Flash range, no matter whether they are matte trance, Blittztrance, balm or a gloss. There is just something very special about the undertones of those lip products, and this gloss does not disappoint. It is a gorgeous formula, a gorgeous color, and I don't think you're going to be able to see this, but I'm almost at a halfway point, which for me with a gloss is quite impressive. Ooh, H&M cream lipsticks. H&M cream lipsticks remain an absolute classic for me. Case on point, I'm actually wearing one of the colors that I mentioned last year, and that is the color Cinnamon Toast, which in my opinion is the most beautiful, delicious, warm cinnamon color ever created. I have not seen a more beautiful interpretation of this color in a lipstick. I wish brands like Pat McGrath and Lisa Eldridge would come up with a color like this, because it is beautiful. It's almost universally flattering, and I personally don't mind the H&M cream lipstick formula, but I can imagine for a lot of you who prefer to have more, you know, long-lasting lipsticks, this is not going to be one of your most favorite formulas, because it is a very creamy, it is not one that's going to last you the longest time, but it is very comfortable. They look very rich and plush on the lips. Another lip product, but this time from Natasha Denona. It's actually the only product from Natasha Denona in like a lipstick that I have from her, and that is the color Noa, which is from the, I want to say, the I Need the Nude line. I still really enjoy this lipstick because it is one of the few cooler toned nudes that I can pull off and I don't look like the undead. I like the formula, it's not too matte, it's not too creamy, it's very comfortable on the lips, it looks beautiful underneath the gloss, so I still really enjoy this lipstick. Oh my goodness, it seems like so far most of the products that I enjoyed last year I still very much enjoy and use. And the rest of the products that I can see here are all eyeshadows, and I think this is going to get a bit more interesting because I actually haven't used some of these since last year. But let's start off with something that is still absolutely one of my favorite products, and that is the Melt Smoke Sessions palette. I swear by this palette. This is the most beautiful green eyeshadow palette that has been created so far. I'm still waiting for Pat McGrath to come out with something that is centered around the color green, but in the meantime, those of you who have the urge to wear the color green should just go for this eyeshadow palette because it is perfection. I still love everything about this eyeshadow palette, from the gold to the olive toned greens to the cooler toned greens. I have used it on a couple of occasions this year and I still think it is beautiful. I still don't have any issues with the formula puffing out or looking weird, so this is definitely still one of my absolute favorite eyeshadow palettes out there. And now this video gets a little bit more interesting because the next product is one that I haven't been using much in the past year, and those are my little cosmetics single eyeshadows. I did use them today because I just wanted to demonstrate some of the products that I had mentioned in that video. I am wearing this one and this one in my crease and this one in my outer corner. They're still beautiful eyeshadows. I still think these are great quality products, but I have come to the conclusion and to the acceptance that I am not a single eyeshadow person. I never pull out my single eyeshadows. I never have the urge to play with them or like rearrange them into color stories and palettes. I much prefer my pre-made palettes. I'm just not a single eyeshadow gal. So unfortunately, these haven't stayed among my favorites this year. What can I say? Same goes for the next product I want to mention, which is now housed in this little eyeshadow palette that I have from Makeup Addiction Cosmetics. I removed everything that was in here and swapped it for some of my JD Glow singles, and these are the Galaxy shadows from JD Glow. The color that I had mentioned in particular is this one here, that is the color Unexpected, which is just absolutely stunning. And today I'm wearing this one, which I don't know the name of, but I can quickly look it up for you. This is the color 365, which is an absolutely beautiful like lime green gold with a little bit of a red base to it. You can see just from my eyes how stunning these are. But like I said, single eyeshadows and I seem to mix like water and oil. We just don't mix very well, or at all, actually. So unfortunately, even though I'm very well aware of how gorgeous these are on the eye, I still never use them. See, I put this eyeshadow on today and I was like, why the fuck am I not using it? It is so beautiful. And then next year you're going to ask me again, did you use your JD Glow Galaxy shadows? And I'll be like, oh no, fuck, I forgot about them again. So no more single eyeshadows for me. If I ever mention to you that I want to buy single eyeshadows, feel free to come to my house and slap me on the face really hard. But guys, since I never got around to reviewing these, and God knows if I'm ever going to get around to doing so, I wanted to mention a little something to you here, because I've heard this circulating rumor that these are dupes of Pat McGrath's special formula. And let me tell you, I'm not on board with that rumor, okay? They are not a dupe for Pat McGrath's special formula. These are in a league of their own. They're very sparkly, they're very beautiful, they're very duochromy, but they are nothing like Pat McGrath's special formula, because the texture and the formula of these is completely different, okay? Completely different. These are very dense, very almost like emollient and oily. They're very rich, they're very flaky. They will give you a little bit of fallout if you don't use a glitter base. The shades from Pat are just meant to be sheerer because they are meant to serve as toppers for other eyeshadows in her palettes. These definitely have too much pigmentation and too much of a base color to serve as toppers, or at least the shadows that I have tried from the Galaxy line. But in my humble opinion, these are nothing like the Pat McGrath special formula, because they might look somewhat similar when you put them on the eye, but I think in terms of the way you use them and the way they feel in terms of their formula and texture, they're nothing alike. And to me that's kind of an important point when you're going to say that two things are dupes of each other. You know, the texture and the formula are also pretty important, not just whether they kind of sort of look similar on the eye, which also they don't, by the way. That was a very long winded rant. Let's move on. The rest of the products I can see here are all from Pat McGrath. I mentioned a couple of her idols, in particular the shade Lapis Luxury, Divine Mink and Pale Fire, as well as the shade Synthetica. Now, I don't want to talk about Lapis Luxury and Divine Mink. I also have them now in the Decadence palette, still absolute favorites. I love both of them. Pale Fire, present in her little Subversive palette, the La Vie en Rose palette, also one of my absolute favorites. I wanted to just quickly mention though the shade Synthetica. and that is this gorgeous purple shade, because I have come to understand that these eyedol shades are being discontinued, and this particular shade is only available in her eyedols line. To my knowledge, none of the purples, none of the rest of the purples in her collection is anything like Synthetica. And if you like sparkly, complex, dimensional purples, I highly recommend you snag Synthetica before that whole line is discontinued and gone forever, because I think this shade is absolutely stunning. So I think that kind of wraps up my thoughts on the eyedols. I love all the eyedols that I have in my collection. 2 more products to go. Pat McGrath Iconic Illumination Quad, the holiday quad from last year. Do I even need to say whether I still like this quad? I have not been able to shut up about it for a whole year, but hey, just in case you haven't been around before and you didn't know that, I adore this eyeshadow palette. It is currently 3rd on my Pat McGrath palette ranking list. It holds a very special place in my heart, and even though most people would qualify this as a boring color story and not something that they have expected from Pat McGrath, I'm here to tell you that this is Pat McGrath at her best. These are neutrals, which are complex, dimensional, sparkly, beautiful on the lid. You can do so much with just these 4 colors. You get her special formula, but you get the baked shades. You also get that super flaky glittery shade here. You can do just so much with these 4 shades, and I'm going to shut up about it because I've talked about it so much already. Still one of my absolute favorites. And last but not least, we have Midnight Sun, the Mothership 6 palette that was released in September last year. Do I still like this palette? Hell yes, I still really like this palette. I've used it quite a few times still this year. I've not changed my mind about this palette. I still think it's a fantastic palette, a beautiful color story, especially for the fall. Very versatile, a lot of different tones, a lot of different kind of looks that you can get out of it. She has been slightly surpassed in my heart by the Divine Rose 2, which is the newest Pat McGrath Mothership palette release, but that's not to say I don't enjoy Midnight Sun and she's no longer in my list of favorites. She absolutely is. So while this was a very interesting exercise, I'm not sure it was very informative for you, because as it turns out, most of the products that I enjoyed last year are still among my favorites, and I still use them on the regular. So I think that's great news for me, because I spent my money well on things that I really enjoy, but I'm not sure it was very interesting for you, because essentially you heard a repetition of what you heard last year. I still love these products. That's it. The end. Conclusion. Let me know whether you have changed your minds about your favorites from last year and which they were. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!